At this point in the agenda, we'll go to the Chief Financial Officer's report, beginning on approximately page 12.
Tim, you can come back next year just to have fun with us again.
Yeah. I'll watch it on TV. Every 2 weeks I'll turn on, put it on.
You watch us on TV. Okay, go ahead.
The monthly revenue for the month of March was $9.5 million. This is one of our biggest months of the year because it's when we get the bulk of the real estate taxes. Out of that 9.5 million, 9.2 million of it was property taxes. I highlighted a couple other areas on reimbursements. We did get special ed reimbursements of $72,000, and we did get our annual interest from the Township Treasurer's Office. They calculate it once a year, and we get paid in March. We ended up receiving $112,000, which was about $28,000 over what we had budgeted. Our operating revenue for the first 9 months was $22.4 million. That's 98% of our budget. On the expenditures, our total expenditures for the month were $1.8 million. The normal items that we usually have, $138,000 of those expenditures were on the capital projects and the life safety projects that are still ongoing. And the operating fund balance at the end of March was $15.9 million. Obviously, that balance is going to start to drop as we continue to have the same expenditures, but obviously aren't receiving that kind of revenue. On the quarterly projections, I highlighted a few things. That property taxes, which is about 86% of our total revenue, is currently running about 99.5% of budget. So we're going to end up, we'll still continue to receive some property tax money over the next few months. And we're obviously going to end up over budget on property taxes. The property tax refunds are currently running at about $306,000 under budget. And you'll remember that we cut back that budget in half a couple of years ago, but we're still coming in significantly under budget on that. I wouldn't expect that we're going to see any significant property tax appeals over the next couple of months. So that's also going to help our surplus. Special education and transportation reimbursements are running about 28% or $6,000 over budget. The primary areas there are the special ed reimbursements for orphanage and for federal room and board, which combined are running $175,000 over budget. General state aid, we're going to come in about $65,000 over budget. That's primarily because of the general state aid recalculations that we had done by Forensic Radlet, where they recalculate general state aid in prior years based on the fact that there were property tax appeals. On the expenditure side, the area where we're going to see expenditures over budget are primarily going to be in the operations and maintenance fund. We've had a fairly bad year in terms of repairs. We've had some issues at the pool. We've had some issues with the heat exchanger. Our repairs, general building repairs, are currently running about $33,000 over budget. And our liability insurance, there were no prior year returns, so we're running about $35,000 over budget on that area. But on an overall basis, between the additional revenue that we're going to be receiving that's going to come in over budget, it's going to more than offset these expenditures that are going to come in over budget. A couple things that were questioned. One had to do with the interest in the IMPREST fund, and that fund is maxed at $60,000, which was the line item that was highlighted, and the interest that we earn on that account is offset by the fees for that account. And there were also some areas that were questioned with regard to items where there was no budget, but yet we have expenditures, and most of that is on the grants that we have. We have 5 grants that we write every year. When we write those grants, we're not sure exactly where those expenditures are going to come out of, what accounts they're going to come out of. In many cases, even if we write them before the budget is approved, the state can come in and say, you can't use that account number, you have to use something different. So we end up in a lot of cases with line items where we have expenditures with no budget, but it's going to be washed out by another line item where we have the budget for that total grant, and we don't have the expenditures. A couple other things that I just wanted to mention was that we received some notification from the state that over the past 2 years, they've had errors in their calculation of corporate personal property tax. School districts, villages, probably over 1,000 government entities in the state of Illinois get corporate personal property taxes. And they say that they've overpaid by $168 million over the last 2 years. The estimate that they have for our district on the overpayment was $47,000. And just to put that in perspective, in that 2-year period, we received almost $800,000 in corporate personal property taxes. But they haven't really come out and said how they're going to address those overpayments, but it's just they've sent out a notice that there was an overpayment, that there were errors in their calculations. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention.
You can tell the state that that money is in the IMED fund and they can take it out of the IMED fund. All right.
And the final thing I wanted to bring up is we joined an organization called the Cooperative Purchasing Network. It's actually out of Texas. And they go out and contract with suppliers of different large-scale types of items. And their bidding process that they go through is acceptable in the state of Illinois, so that we wouldn't have to go through the bidding process. So for example, if we want to purchase a certain item and they have a contract for that, we could purchase it through that contract and not have to go through the bidding process. I talked to our legal counsel, and they've dealt with this organization out of Texas before. They say they put together like a 2-page contract with the organization that satisfies the requirements of the state, so that we wouldn't have to go out and bid if we chose to do that. So I just wanted to let you know that we are part of that organization and may look at that in the future for different purchases.
So is there a cost to join?
No.
They get a fee then when we use them or something?
Yeah, I'm sure they get a fee from the vendor when we buy it.
Well, you can weigh that into your analysis, right?
Yeah.
You said you didn't expect any property tax appeals in the next few months, but what you're talking about, there's plenty of property tax appeals out there. We just don't anticipate any being settled in the next few months.
I wouldn't anticipate any major ones. I haven't heard of any major ones.
And that's when they settle a year, that's when they take the money out of our coffers?
So we
Yes.
still got the golf course, I think, is still out there.
Yes.
I think there's still 1 or 2 at the mall.
Yeah,
So they're out there, we don't think they're gonna be settled before June 30th?
correct.
Okay, very good. Any questions on this side?
Yeah, page 21. Line tuition general.
Is there the 130,000?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And in fact, there isn't any.
Yeah.
That's tuition that comes in, it starts coming in now for the summer program.
I just want to make sure that's
Yeah.
summer.
Yes.
Okay. And then the fees we're getting on the food service, you anticipate us being under budget revenues on that?
No, I think,
Services provided to other districts. I'm sorry, it's page 23.
Thank you for the page.
well, the billing that we receive is sometimes behind, so we don't have, I think by the end of June, we're gonna have all the months in, but we're probably behind a little bit.
How many months are we
But
behind?
we're usually at least a month behind, if not more. But I think if we're under on that expenditure here, or revenue here, we're gonna be under on there's an expenditure on the other side that's equal to the same amount.
And then
the
finally,
admissions are gonna be fine.
page 22, athletics,
Are you on 22, the board book or his report?
board book.
Board book.
Okay, which one?
Athletics, 180 versus 98. We expect to have a more,
Yeah, I think that'll, because we don't have the spring pay to participate numbers in there yet.
all right.
Dr. King? Laura?
No.
Mr. Cindy? Nope. Ed?
No, thanks.
Mr. Walsh?
You answered my questions, thank you,
Okay.
Tim.
Anything further, Doctor?
I
The
think that's it.
finances?
That was everything we wanted to cover, right? Was it the purchasing network?
Thanks, Tim.
Thanks.
Thanks, Tim.
Okay, at this point of the agenda, we'll go to our first visitor comments, and I'll survey the audience.